All right, so you should be in your workbook turned to handout 5A. And if you remember our question that we just talked about, we are now focusing on how did the Nez Perce, or the Nimipu, that are the same tribe, just different names, how did the land they live on, how did it sustain or help them live? So we know they lived in the West because that's where all the Americans were going, but the Nimipu already lived there. So we're going to read 2 articles today, and while we read them, we're going to be thinking, how does their land sustain or help them? Okay? So the article we're reading first is called Nimipu Homeland, and the second one is going to be called Legend Times. So for now, we're just focused on Nimipu Homeland. So follow along, and at the end, I'm going to ask you, how does their land sustain, which is just another word for help, how does it help them live? Nimipu Homeland, Nez Perce Country. Long before Meriwether Lewis and William Clark ventured west, before the English established a colony at Jamestown, and before Christopher Columbus stumbled upon the New World, the Nez Perce, who called themselves the Nimipu, lived in the prairies and river valleys of north-central Idaho, Montana, northeastern Oregon, and southeastern Washington, an area of approximately 17 million acres. So I'm thinking right now, what did I just learn about the Nez Perce and their land? So one thing I know that I learned is that they lived in prairies and river valleys. They lived in Idaho, Montana, Oregon, Washington, and 17 million acres. That means they had a lot of land. So now I know they lived by prairies, which is basically a lot of grass. They lived by rivers. I know 4 states they lived in: Idaho, Montana, Oregon, and Washington. And I know they had a lot of land. So this doesn't really tell me a lot about how the land helped them. So we're going to keep reading to see if we learn more about how the land helps them. This more just tells me where they lived. In 1805, when Lewis and Clark met the Nez Perce, they encountered a people who were well integrated into their environment. Nimipu traditions and knowledge of the surroundings were well honed over thousands of years. The Nimipu's homeland had abundant resources that sustained their economy, lifestyle, and culture. So again, I'm wondering, how does this tell me how the land helped them live? And there's a couple words that I want to look up. If you remember, we can look to the back page to figure out definitions of words we don't know. So it said that they were well integrated with their environment. So I'm going to look back. And it says well integrated means blended into a harmonious whole or unified. So this is saying they were well integrated or unified with their environment. So that would be a good thing, right? If you are unified, that means that you get along, maybe you have similar beliefs, And so they are unified and use their environment. Then it says, Nimipu traditions and knowledge of their surroundings were well honed. So I'm going to look that word up. It says it means perfected. Wow, so their knowledge was perfected. So they knew all about their surroundings, right? So they had a lot of knowledge about their land. Their homeland had abundant resources that sustained their economy, lifestyle, and culture. So that sentence alone tells me, right? They really relied on their land around them. Okay? So going back to our question, how did the land sustain or help them? Now we know some of the ways it did. So for example, lots of land, right? So one way is that the land gave them a lot of area to live, maybe to set up their houses. Also, it says they had a lot of knowledge of their surroundings and abundant resources. So that tells me their land helped them live because maybe it gave them things like water or plants that they could eat or animals they could hunt. So we're not sure yet, but we think, as a good reader, from all of our background knowledge, we're thinking that is a few of the reasons how the land sustained them and helped them to live.